Hello everybody. In this video we're going to investigate the history of this World War I German helmet that was found in an old house in Canada. The helmet has the name of its original owner inside, and to start I'll let the current owner of the helmet describe how it ended up being in the possession of his family.
I would like to start off by giving a little bit of context about this helmet and my family. My great-grandmother Phoebe Campbell lost her two brothers and first husband during the First World War while they were serving in France with the Canadian Expeditionary Force. Their names were Lieutenant Colin Stanley Campbell, Private Newman Hall Campbell, and Lieutenant George Arthur Ewens. Practically all the men she had ever loved were killed in action within a few months of one another, an incredible tragedy that our family is still coming to terms with nearly 110 years later. Following the war, my great-grandmother refused to let their sacrifices be in vain. She went on to remarry my great-grandfather, Gunner William Benjamin Leggett, a severely wounded veteran himself. Ben enlisted on November 29, 1915 with the 147th Grey Battalion, but quickly soon after found himself attached to the 46th Queen's Battery, an artillery unit raised by the Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. He would make it to England and France, where he arrived in time for the shows on the Somme, Vimy Ridge, and finally Passchendaele, where he was severely wounded on October 27, 1917. The story that was relayed to my grandmother by her father, that in turn was relayed to me, was that Ben and a group of 4 or 5 other 46 battery men were standing outside a recently captured German pillbox when a high explosive shell landed in their midst. The other men were all killed immediately, but in the final seconds before impact, Ben heard the whistle of incoming artillery and threw up his hands in an attempt to protect his head and face. This act undoubtedly saved his life, but he still received devastating and life-altering wounds. The shell sent shrapnel fragments into his left eye and hands, his eye having to be removed that same day. Because of the bloody nature of his head wound, the men who rushed forward to check on what had happened assumed he was also dead until they saw his bloody hand moving in the mud. His war was over, but his service continued. He remained a proud member of the Grey Regiment until 1940 when he tried to volunteer his service for the Second World War, but was denied due to his First World War injuries. He was told there were younger and less injured men who could take his place. This left a bitter taste in his mouth, as he was a true soldier who would never have asked someone else to take his place when he felt he was more than capable of still doing the job himself. He retired with the rank of Major. His commission document is signed by Sir Julian Byng of Vimy. I discovered this helmet in 2012 when cleaning out the storage room at our old family cottage. Unfortunately, the conditions it was stored under for 100 years resulted in severe damage to the leather helmet and its brass fittings. Still, its significance to us was huge. Years later, I found a name tag under the leather lining, which until now we were unable to decipher. This is a reunion photograph of men from the 46th Queen's Battery in 1919. Ben is shown being the only man facing away from the camera in an attempt to hide the left side of his face, which I found to be quite poignant, as my grandmother and great-grandmother often said that he was very self-conscious of his wounds up until the day he died. Seeing that represented here so soon after the war, while surrounded by people he loved and quite literally bled with, I found to be quite sad, considering he should have only been proud. Some of the other items available in this image are his war medals, another reunion photograph where he's shown wearing his eye patch, and a 46 Queen's Battery reunion pamphlet.
Now that we know how the helmet got to Canada, let's start the investigation into the helmet's history before it became a war souvenir. It is a World War I helmet, and not a spiked helmet like I feel like saying, because as you see it doesn't actually have a spike. This is a helmet with a ball on top instead, and these helmets were used by artillery units, and the ball represented a cannonball. So it's a World War I German ball helmet. And inside the helmet there's a name tag for a one-year volunteer Commessmann of the 8th Battery of Foot Artillery Regiment 9. The current owner of the helmet wanted to know if it was possible to research volunteer Kommessmann and to find out what had happened to him during the war. So, unlike for World War II German soldiers, there's a lot of information about World War I German soldiers that's available online, for example on the website ancestry.com. And with an unusual name such as Kommessmann and his complete unit information, the chances of successfully researching him are very good. So I simply looked him up on the World War I casualty lists that are available on ancestry.com, and this list came up, indicating that a Karl Kommessmann of the 8th Battery of Foot Regiment No. 9 from the town of Alpen had died in a hospital at an unspecified date following a disease. Since the name is rare and the unit is a perfect match, it's pretty clear that this is the man the helmet belonged to. There is a minor discrepancy. You can see that on the list they wrote the name with only one S, whereas the name tag inside the helmet has two S's, but this is probably just a mistake by whoever made the list. I then did the usual procedure of writing to the town hall of the soldier's hometown to find out if they had any more information about him or if he has any living descendants, and I quickly received a very helpful and detailed reply. Karl Kommessmann was born on May 19, 1895 in Alpen and had two younger sisters, one of which died shortly after birth, as was common at the time. The family later moved to Rheinbach, where his father became mayor of the town. Here you can see Karl with his parents and his sister Maria. It's obvious from the photo that they are a wealthy family, and this is confirmed by the fact that a painting of Karl Kommessmann also exists. Karl Kommessmann studied law, and when the war started, he volunteered and served in Fuss Artillerie Regiment No. 9. He died on October 16, 1914 in Attigny, France, at the age of 19. His sister Maria never married, so no close family or descendants exist today. Presumably his helmet must have been reissued to another soldier, or perhaps it remained in a building or depot somewhere, and that's how William Leggett ended up finding it later on in the war, and bringing it back home to Canada as a souvenir. Karl Kommessmann's grave still exists today. You can see it's an imposing monument that bears witness to the wealth of his parents and to their grief at his early death. Interestingly, we note that on his grave his name is written with a C, not a K. And even more interestingly, we can see that his grave is decorated with a very realistic depiction of an artillery helmet. When they visited his grave years later, could his parents have imagined that Karl Kommessmann's actual helmet still existed thousands of kilometers away in the home of a Canadian soldier? 19-year-old Karl Kommessmann died 111 years ago, but today, thanks to his helmet, we remember him, his family, and some of his former enemies. I hope you found this video interesting, and if ever you want help for similar research projects, I can be contacted at this email address.